Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here. And not only are they going to ban cars, they are also attempting to completely shift the electrical grid, the entire supply chain over to a new reset system. And even world leaders are starting to speak out about this. This out of Zero Hedge, it says, I'm afraid Czech president blames green madness for energy crisis. It says here, Czech President Milos Zeman has blamed green madness for the energy crisis and warned about the abolition of cars with internal combustion engines will only prolong the agony. Zeman said the primary cause of the crisis was not the Ukraine war, but green fanaticism that has left European countries dependent on energy sources that cannot meet demand. It says, and I quote, whether it's called the Green Deal or whatever, I'm afraid. However, I won't be here anymore when we find out where the green madness will take us, said Zeman. The abolition of cars with internal combustion engines will lead to the advent of far more demanding electromobility. The biggest consumers of electricity will be electric cars with a short range and a high price, he added. And by the way, with computers and cars, you know what can happen. We've heard of Princess Diana. We've heard of Michael Hastings, the journalist. And of course, we heard about just recently what happened with Anne Heche, who in her last final moments before she crashed into a car and tried to struggle to get out of a body bag, you could be heard screaming for her life as her car seemed to take on a life of its own. That's a whole other issue. But here out of the Gateway Pundit, it says California Governor Gavin Newsom brags about being the first jurisdiction in the world to ban sale of gas-powered vehicles. And all the while we see the World Economic Forum pushing for the end of cars as well. It says WEF, save the planet, give up your car. It's funny how it works as clockwork. July 2022, the WEF says we need to get rid of cars. And then within a month, California says we need to get rid of cars. And then Europe is calling to get rid of cars. And we have all of this madness happening at the same time as an energy crisis, which is obviously man-made, obviously controlled, obviously scripted, and the collapse of the supply chain. My friends, this is go time, and we are getting into something crazy here today, and we are going to go into several other examples because the shortages, the electricity shortages, the water shortages, the food shortages. We're seeing empty shelves for the first time in a while, and all the things that we've been warning about culminating are happening as we speak. We're going to get into that and much more today, my friends. But before we do, as always, I urge people to check those links below, gogetfunding.com, Patreon, subscribe to our. We have a PayPal address, we have a Bitcoin address, and we have a Cointree link with multiple different cryptocurrencies that you could donate in. If you please, we really appreciate you helping keep independent media alive. We are completely viewer funded. We don't get many donations, so we truly appreciate it. This number here on the screen is over many years. So it's not like we just have $9,847 coming in. That is over a long period of time. And thank God for those who have pledged that to us. Also, check out heavensharvest.com for storable food that's non-GMO, for heirloom seeds, for water filtration and storage, gardening resources, survival resources. Use code WAM, W-A-M, and you get free shipping on most of these goods in the United States. And even if you aren't in the United States, you should still use code WAM anyway. Again, my friends, this is all starting to sell out on a regular basis due to the collapse of the supply chain. As we are, the whole purpose of trying to get people to get this storable food is because we're seeing a collapse of the supply chain. So go and get this now, not later. Save yourself, save your family. If you have a big family, get more than just the normal amount. Get 3 months, get 12 months. I mean, we're looking at something that the Belgian Prime Minister just warned could be 5 to 10 years of rationing. And of course, governments around the world with House resolutions in the United States are preparing for that. And of course, in Canada with food rationing legislation signed in back in September before this food crisis happened. Also, check out whamsurvival.com for long-term storable foods. You save a bunch of money if you go through us. In the face of the control collapse of the supply chain and the Great Reset, it has never been more important. We are not going to be promoting this site much longer because we're moving on to other affiliates to get you prepared. But nonetheless, check out whamsurvival.com while you still can. Also, check out the bit.ly link in the description for Tim Pachote, the Liberty Advisor, certified financial planner. You can get a free initial consultation, a free portfolio review. If you book with him now and you're in the United States, he has been speaking out against a Great Reset and this control collapse for a while and trying to keep his clients money safe. So get on that now. Anyways, as I mentioned, the Czech president is blaming the grain madness for the energy crisis. Oh, weird, because everyone else is saying it's Russia, even though they have been, not adequately keeping track of their grid for quite some time throughout Europe and the United States and Canada. In most cases, these countries' grids are outdated by about 60 to 70 years. And there's a reason why they never updated it, because they wanted to get order out of chaos and they knew what was coming. Gateway pundit, California Governor Gavin Newsom brags about being the first jurisdiction in the world to ban sale of gas-powered vehicles. California Governor Gavin Newsom bragged about being the first jurisdiction in the world to ban the sale of gas-powered vehicles. On Thursday, California air regulators voted to ban new gas-powered car sales by 2035. 100% of all cars sold in California by 2035 must be free of fossil fuel emissions. By the way, does anyone ever think about what effect this will have on the oil industry? Remember, the government is the biggest polluter in the world. California government is definitely a big polluter. And on top of that, they're blaming the people. See, this is an anti-human agenda. Carbon zero, net carbon zero. Humans are carbon-based life forms. This is a war against humanity. And it should be noted that the U.S. government propped up Standard Oil in the first place and created a monopoly out of them while banning competition like water-powered vehicles, like hemp-powered vehicles. In general, this has been perpetrated by the government. And then they come in and ban straws while they're going on private jets around the world. They come in and bring in carbon taxes like Norway and in Canada. Gro Harlem Brundtland and Maurice Strong were the ones that spearheaded that back in the 90s with the United Nations. And now they're doing all of these other extra tricks to force us into the Great Reset system where we're controlled, we own nothing, and we're so-called happy. It continues in this article here. It says, and I quote, "The climate crisis is solvable if we follow the big, bold steps necessary to stem the tide of carbon pollution," California's Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom said in a statement. I've been saying this forever. My friends, they cannot get us through the climate hoax because no one's buying it. So what will they do? Well, as I said, from the beginning of 2020, after the COVID pandemic, they will come in with the climate lockdowns. And with the climate lockdowns, they'll use inflation as a way to move into the system. Inflation and gas prices and shortages are the way they do it. And they're doing it on purpose while hoarding it themselves in order to scare us into giving up the things that are obviously the most sustainable for human life and moving into another system that's actually more pollutant. These lithium batteries, for example, are a huge polluters. And where do they get this electricity charge from? Coal-powered plants in many cases. So they don't go to what makes more sense. As much as a lot of people hate nuclear energy, it makes way more sense than gasoline. But also, gasoline makes way more sense than electric cars and all that kind of stuff. This is a controlled collapse of the energy grid worldwide. It says here, because everyone has $70,000 to spend on a new car and $20,000 for a car battery replacement, let them eat cake. And I quote, this is monumental, California Air Resources Board member Daniel Sperling told CNN. This is the most important thing that CARB has done in the last 30 years. It's important not just for California, but it's important for the country and the world. It's unclear how California drivers will be able to charge millions of electric vehicles in a state plagued by rolling blackouts. Good point, isn't it? Well, they're building a carbon credit system, so you'll only be allowed to use so much electricity anyway. That's why they want to hook up every house with smart meters that tell the government how much emissions you have, as well as your car to see how much emissions you have, so that they can decide how much energy you are allowed to use based on a carbon credit system that they're already saying they're unrolling in Canada. In the Netherlands, they've announced that as well, tied to your bank account with the World Economic Forum, as we have reported all too many times, is openly saying that this is what they will be doing. I've gone into that with the recent videos I've done on the leak in Canada for the climate camps they're building. And of course, all my videos on the Great Reset, including the Cashless Society video I recently put up just yesterday, which hasn't gotten many views because of, unfortunately, there's a glitch on BitChute. When it uploaded, it took 8 or 9 hours to actually go public, which just caused problems. Anyway, point is, I've been going into this for quite some time, and that is the idea. They will use this as an excuse to bring in the carbon credit system and tie it to everything. So how will we all be charging our cars? Well, we won't be, because we're only going to be allowed to use a car so many times a week. And of course, that is based on the Chinese model, which everything else is based on. And they're creating a cashless system based on the BRICS new basket of currencies and the IMF's basket of currencies called the special drawing rights to tie to all of this with social credit and vaccine passports and carbon credits and digital ID in general. Anyway, it just happens that the World Economic Forum at the same time, well, just a month before California announced this, says save the planet, give up your car. Just like they committed to a war on fertilizer and nitrogen pollution a month before the Netherlands decided to ban 30% of farms. 30% of farms in the second biggest agricultural exporter in the world. And now Canada is doing the same thing, and Ireland's doing the same thing, while Ireland is also getting rid of people's property rights entirely. This is absolutely massive, my friends. And continuing on here, it all integrates with this other system of control. The inflation and the recession and the collapse of the markets and the economy, which was all by demand too, or all by the script as well. Remember, they always knew that printing a bunch of currency out of thin air would lead to all these problems. But of course, now that they can't just enslave people with inflation, they have to, blame someone else for it. So they blame Russia, and they don't let a good crisis go to waste because that allows them to shift into a new economic system that's even worse. That's digital. As the ECB has recently reported, they see no reason to have cash any longer, the European Central Bank. So we are going into that phase first right now, my friends. This is out of the Gateway Pundit. It says, Biden economy, 20 million Americans behind on electric bills, facing electricity being shut off. Yeah, but of course, we have a solution for you, my friends. That solution will be a new carbon credit system tied to your bank account. How convenient. Of course, tyranny comes under the guise of convenience. Meanwhile, in Britain, this out of Zero Hedge, it says, Doomsday scenario, 70% of British pubs may not survive winter as power costs skyrocket. And we are seeing so many of these places shut down. I was just in Britain. I was all over Scotland and England, and there are pubs shutting down everywhere. Places are shutting down everywhere. And it's not just because of energy costs. It's because of inflation. It's because of supply chain issues. It's just too difficult to stay alive right now. And you see these old pubs that are hundreds of years old, gone forever. After every crisis they've been through, every war they've been through, they go under because of this insane tyranny, which again is order out of chaos to bring in the New World Order, the Great Reset. We know this. Carrying on here, out of Zero Hedge again, it says, Germany is Venezuela? Toilet paper shortage looms amid energy crisis, driven by the imminent energy crisis accelerating across Europe, and policymakers' refusal to acquiesce because, and I quote, we have to save democracy in Ukraine. The German paper industry is warning of supply bottlenecks for toilet paper. As Focus.de reports, the paper industry is sounding the alarm. In the event of gas shortage, it would no longer be possible to produce enough toilet paper. For the International Day of Toilet Paper on Friday, the German paper industry warns of new bottlenecks. Martin Krengel, vice president of the association, the paper industry, said, we, and I quote, we are particularly dependent on gas for the production of tissue paper. Without it, we will no longer be able to provide security of supply. According to data provided by the paper industry, each German citizen uses an average of 134 rolls of toilet paper per year. And I quote, in the current energy crisis, our top priority is to provide people with this important commodity, Krengel stressed. Remember, beginning of 2020, the collapse of the toilet paper industry and everyone hoarded. Well, it was all controlled. They purposely held back toilet paper. We know that now. And on top of that, flour and rice and pasta noodles, they held back this stuff. They do it on purpose to cause panic. And then they could bring in their new system where they have mRNA infused foods, like the University of California is working on, and Johns Hopkins with Bill Gates at their Bill Gates farms all over the country and all over the world. Bill Gates is building highways everywhere for carbon credit checkpoints, which you can honestly look up in almost any country in the world. And on top of that, he's buying up farmland next to the Chinese government, next to Air Force bases in North Dakota. And elsewhere, of course, as Jeff Bezos is buying up all this warehouse space as he's going into the grocery business based on the digital technology. And if you just go north of North Dakota, you'll find Winnipeg, Canada, my hometown, and that is where they are openly building climate camps, which I recently reported on, with new document leaks coming out of the government showing the blueprints for this, including interrogation rooms and everything. They are going for the throat, my friend. But I remember being in Mexico right as the toilet paper shortage happened. I just took off to Mexico, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, March 2020. And they had piles of toilet paper there. Why? And they were getting a lot of it shipped from the US. Why? Because it's all fake. It's all fraudulent. It's all manipulated. It's not real. It's all just meant to scare people into a stupor and then into dependence and compliance. So yeah, the supply chain could work perfectly fine. They're purposely making sure that it doesn't, so that people panic and then they depend on the food rations of the state. And remember, we have governments around the world pushing this. We have the Emergency Planning Act sections 18 and 18.1 in Canada signed into law September 13th, 2021, which literally says under L, procure or fix prices for food, clothing, fuel, equipment, medical supplies, or other essential supplies, and the use of any property, services, resources, or equipment within any part of Saskatchewan during the emergency period. It also says that they can take away your home, that they can take away your kids, that they could warrantlessly arrest you, they could force you to work without pay, they could kill you, they could force medicate you, they could steal your livestock, they could take over your business. I mean, it goes without saying what this is going to lead to. And yeah, it even says authorize the entry into any building or any land without warrant by any person in the course of implementing an emergency plan. This is the global gulag that we've been warning about for so long, my friends. And carrying on here, it says here at a Zero Hedge, Spanish official warns of winter of great suffering. A top Spanish official has warned that Europeans are about to endure a winter of great suffering as a result of Russia fully suspending gas supplies during the freezing months. Spanish Defense Minister Margarita Robles made the comments during an appearance on Radio Nacional. And I quote, "We are going to have a winter of great suffering," said the cabinet member, adding, "In Europe, we have to work hard to be ready to deal with it." Well, I was just in Spain. They banned the use of air conditioners going below 27 degrees Celsius, which is about 81 degrees Fahrenheit, which is insane in the middle of the summer, in the middle of a heat wave. And most people didn't enforce it, but a lot of places did. And you go into some restaurants that were just blasting hot and you're trying to get out of the heat. And then you have, because remember, these restaurants are open air too, to some degree. So they have to really blast their air conditioning, and it's set at 27. So basically it just never catches up and it ends up around 35 degrees in that heat. And of course, the Belgian Prime Minister just warned that he sees 5 to 10 years of this kind of rationing, which I also just reported on, and I urge people to check out that video. I think it was 2 days ago. Yeah, Belgian PM warns 10 years of rationing. I urge people to go check that out as well. We go all into that. And again, this is happening in France. This is happening in Germany. Germany is bringing in a color-coded system. Never mind, the collapse of the economy, the collapse of the supply chain, and the collapse of the grid. They are focusing right now all their energy on masking people. It's 2022, and creating a color-coded system based on the Chinese model, because all of this started in China. Remember, the United States went and Henry Kissinger met with Mao Zedong in the early 1970s to create an artificial alliance with China to save them from starvation, essentially, and make them into a monopoly and a guinea pig state, if you will, for technocracy. This led into the creation of the Trilateral Commission by Zbigniew Brzezinski during the Carter administration, which meant the creation of basically a world economy system based around China. And that, is what Zbigniew Brzezinski openly said himself. He said he wanted to create a technocratic superstate worldwide and use China as a model. And now here we are. So what happens in China happens in the rest of the world. And I recently did another video on that people can check out. I've done a lot of videos lately called "The Chinese Are Coming," which goes into those examples. But now, on top of all of this, China's water crisis could trigger global catastrophe, it says. China's water crisis is nothing new, but it's gotten worse, and it's now on the brink of catastrophe and could trigger a global catastrophe, according to Foreign Affairs. Given the country's overriding importance to the global economy, potential water-driven disruptions beginning in China would rapidly reverberate through food, energy, and materials markets around the world and create economic and political turbulence for years to come. For starters, there's no substitute for water, which is essential for food production, electricity generation, and sustaining all life on Earth. In China, which consumes 10 billion barrels of water per day, approximately 700 times its daily oil consumption, decades of economic and population growth have pushed northern China's water systems to unsustainable levels. According to the report, the per capita water supply around the North China plain at the end of 2020 was nearly 50% below the UN's definition of acute water scarcity at 253 cubic meters. Other major cities, including Beijing, Shanghai, Tianjin, are at similar or lower levels. Remember, this is all meant so that we can eat the bugs and drink the sewage. They're already dumping bio sludge into Los Angeles's tap water. And remember, as they ban cars, keep in mind that they did all this in the first place. They pushed the outdated grids. They pushed the outdated supply chain. They purposely collapsed it. China is knocking, or China, Freudian slip there. California is knocking 70,000 truckers off the highway due to a new law. There are rail strikes coming up just in time for harvest season. There's rail strikes as well in England and Scotland and throughout France. They are there's a milk shortage, there's a wheat shortage, there is a gas shortage, and all the while, what are the governments doing? They're focusing on climate issues like the Inflation Reduction Act, which actually causes more inflation by printing more money, and focuses entirely on basically creating the Green New Deal, banning cars, and pushing us into dependence to the New World Order, the Great Reset, which, you could go on the World Economic website and see, World Economic Forum website, and see everything that we're saying as basically a goal 2 years ago for the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. All of this leads to the complete collapse of one system and the move into another one, because they're purposely trying to destroy one empire and create a new empire. And we know China and Russia is creating a new world reserve currency system that's cashless, that's based on social credit, that's based on a basket of currencies, just like the special drawing rights at the IMF. As inflation hits, as recession hits, as the control collapse of the supply chain happens, as we see water shortages, as they try to ban cars, as they push us out of our homes into tiny homes in big cities and tell us that we need smart meters on our house and we need checkpoints on the highways to judge our carbon, as The Guardian, which is funded by Bill Gates, goes and says that we need an end to free range farms because those cause pollution, but then say that we need to bring in more urban sprawls to end pollution. And then all of this is based on overpopulation, which there is none. It's under sustainability because they're kicking people out of farms, like I just mentioned with the Guardian article, and pushing people into big cities. So there's no sustainability because people in big cities have always depended on the people on the farms. This all culminates with the complete collapse of the system. So people say, I don't think this will go through. I think we'll be able to manage. Maybe. But do you really want to take that chance, my friends? Do you really want to take that chance and risk your life and risk your independence as a human being over the thought that maybe they won't do the thing that will benefit them the most? I warned about all of this at the beginning of 2020 with the vaccine passes. I said January 22nd, 2020, and it's all backed up on Odyssey, which is on IPFS, which you cannot manipulate or change. It shows January 22nd, 2020. They're going to bring in vaccine passports. They're going to bring in lockdowns and quarantines. They're going to bring in technocracy, utilizing all this based on a cashless society. And then they're going to go after the climate situation next, which I said in later videos around January 29th and into February. And people said I was absolutely bonkers crazy at that time. And I lost a lot of subscribers, even conspiracy theorists. And a lot of the people that listened, though, many of them wouldn't have had vaccines anyway. And many of them were awake anyway. But many of them would have got vaccines if I wasn't pushing people all the time and annoying people about this. Because again, going forward with this control collapse of the supply chain, if you don't have storable foods, if you don't have heirloom seeds, if you don't have things like this, you are screwed in a complete collapse. And then you're dependent on going and getting mRNA infused foods from Bill Gates and sludge and drinking sewage and eating the bugs, which is them looking at you as cattle on a farm to be prodded. And basically, you are a pawn on a chessboard to be sacrificed for the king and the queen. That is where they're going. It's not just depopulation, it's the destruction of independence, the makeup of humanity itself. They're going after the very idea of individualism to create a technocratic global state of collectivism. So I'm just trying to warn people so that they take, the responsibility over themselves to go and do something about this. That's why we have these affiliates. I didn't have affiliates for years. The only reason I do this is because it's not about making money. It's about getting people to actually do something for themselves. Because the biggest way we win this war isn't by shooting anyone, isn't by hanging anyone, none of that. No. That isn't how we do this. They want that. In fact, the way we do this is by preparing ourselves, because what they cannot, what they don't expect is the idea of human beings being as they are, human beings, resisting the Tower of Babel and being independent. That is the biggest slap in the face of the globalists and the global establishment and these evil satanic pedophiles. The biggest slap in the face is being independent. And the best way to be independent is, well, to be prepared. Humanity is based on individual responsibility. It's based on survival. It's based on empathy, which they're trying to destroy. And you can see that in places like China, the testing sites. And it's based in freedom. All of those things are synonymous, my friends. So show them who's boss by living by example and living freely. Go and check those links below. Go to heavensharvest.com, use code WHAM, W-A-M. Get free shipping in the United States on most of these products. Get 3 months, get 12 months. For the love of God, if we have 5 to 10 years of this, do you really want to take that risk? I mean, your currency is turning into nothing anyway. And time is the best currency, and it's bought with food and sustainability. And you won't be able to find non-GMO food in the future. You won't be able to find heirloom seeds in the future. California is getting devastated by this drought. And we know there's a lot of weather manipulation going on as well. And with California's drought getting worse, they make most of the organic food in the United States. Go to heavensharvest.com, get non-GMO storable foods, get heirloom seeds, get water filters, storage. We have lights, we have flints, we have books on how to get started. If you're in a big city, just use storable foods. If you have no way to get out of the big city, if you have no choice and you're stuck in that Agenda 2030 kind of situation, then get storable foods. It's insane not to, unless you really want to be dependent on their system. Because people will say, well, they won't allow that to happen. No, they'll allow it to happen for a short amount of time to cause panic so that you come in and accept their food, accept their poison rations, and become a dependent slave to them on their carbon credit and social credit grid tied to your bank account. They already have it all over the world. They froze accounts in Canada if you protested against them. They have digital IDs coming out there tied to all of that, including carbon credits. In the Netherlands, they're rolling it out, and they're rolling out their smart cities. And with the smart cities, you have smart homes, which give the government all the data from your home and how much electricity you're using. And they have it in China, obviously, and they brought in social credit in Rome and Bologna already. So go to heavensharvest.com, use code WHAM, W-A-M, and get prepared now. Also, check out whamsurvival.com for long-term storable foods, and you save a bunch of money through us if you go through us on those links. Again, in the description of this video. I just want to push people enough over the line so they make the same decisions that they made with the vaccine. Not taking the vaccine, in this case, getting prepared for what comes next. Best case scenario is a couple years away. But come on, look at what's happening right now. Seriously, what kind of miracle, what kind of agenda could they have up their sleeve for it to not happen immediately going into this fall and into the winter? And either way, it's better to be overly prepared than underprepared. I'm like 95% sure of it. 5%, I'm like, okay, maybe they'll push it off longer, but I just can't see it, my friends. Of course, I'll just close it off here, with all of this. As we fight for humanity, the best way to fight a war on humanity is a fight against a war on humanity, of course, is to be more human, be more empathetic, be more conscious, be more independent, be more survival ready, and of course, get out of big cities and get into privacy coins, get out of the banking system, get gold and silver, get armed if you can. And everyone says, oh, it's not as easy as you say. It's easier said than done. Yeah, it was literally everything is easier said than done, except for thoughts. Thoughts are easier than saying. But other than that, saying is easier said than done in every case. So why use that as an excuse? It's an absurd excuse that just perpetuates your potential enslavement. Anyway, I appreciate everyone watching. If you want to help yourself in the financial system and you're worried about your retirement and your funds, etc., we have a bit.ly link in the description for Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor, certified financial planner. You could go to him and get a free portfolio review, initial consultation with him. He's been speaking out against Great Reset and recession and hyperinflation for a long time, and he has been keeping his clients' money safe. So if you want to get prepared and you don't want to lose your retirement funds and your savings, go to that link in the description. I believe it's 4 down. Anyway, We have many ways that you can help support us. We have GoGetFunding.com, Patreon, Subscribestar. We have a PayPal address. We have a Bitcoin address. And we have a Cointree link with multiple different cryptocurrencies that you could donate in if you please, including Monero, the privacy coin, which also helps get around that cashless system, ironically speaking. And of course, we have Epic Fund Me, where you can donate an Epic Cash, the privacy coin, which is based on the Mimblewimble protocol, which you can find out more about on Epic Cash community on Telegram. You can get merchandise through our Teespring store in the description below. We have another affiliate, rncstore.com, Richardson Nutritional Center, your source for Laetrile online, made famous by G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. Get your apricot seeds, Laetrile, amygdalin, and vitamin B17 there. And of course, we have our Rockfin channel, World Alternative Media, where we have exclusive content, including documentaries and Q&As if you pay $9.99 a month. And that also goes up to our pledges on Patreon and Subscribestar. Anyway, we are on Telegram, World Alternative Media. We have a Telegram channel as well if you want to get out of the noise and just want notifications from us. It's called World Alternative Media Announcements. We have a newsletter, www.iamband.com, where you can sign up with your email. It takes 2 seconds. We won't spam you, and it's free. We're on band.video at World Alternative Media. We're on BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, and Brighteon at World Alternative Media. We're on Hive, Steemit, Float.app, and Vigilante.tv at Josh Sigurdson. And by the way, if you are on Hive, go give us an upvote. We are getting downvoted by 1 millionaire. So we'll have 110 upvotes on our post. Everyone likes it. And then it's a way for us to fund our operations here. And next thing I know, a millionaire downvotes it down to 0. So if you guys are on Hive and you support Hive, help support the creators that have been building Hive for all these years. We're on the bad guys, TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, Twitter and Getter at World Alt Media. We're on all the popular podcast platforms, Spotify, worldaltmedia.podbean.com. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're hitting records in Australia. So thank you to the Australian listeners. And go give us a good rating on those podcast platforms if you can, and if you haven't already. Anyways, I appreciate everyone watching today. Hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.